Ladies and gentlemen, come gather round, come gather round, come gather around. Today, we're going to hack a factory fuel injection computer so we can tune for boost. And it's going to be a whole lot more complex than you're expecting. But if you can wrap your head around it, it's not really that bad. So, let's go. No transition screen, sorry. I'm using HP tuners to hack a factory GM P59 LS fuel injection computer. And we're going to run 2-bar. We're going to look at a bunch of little things here. We are going to change the OS, the operating system, so we can run boost. We're going to fail the mass airflow sensor and disable long-term fuel trim so we can tune speed density only. That's also for boost. I'm going to mess with the injector flow. Then I'm going to mess with the spark table, which excitingly leans on injector flow to figure out how to run spark, but we'll get to that. And we're going to discover we've got some limitations with that, and I'm going to scale the whole freaking tune. And that's pretty straightforward. At that point, we can pretty much take a look at some bonus features, which is dealing with traction control, unlocking the torque converter clutch, and playing with some drive-by-wire settings. And I have some interesting stories about drive-by-wire. So let's get into this. First, with your operating system, you're going to go into operating system, and HP Tuners gives you a couple options that you can employ into your tune. These give you enhanced features of speed density, including being able to fail the MAF sensor. I want 2-bar. Excitingly, I anticipated being able to run 3-bar, but because my computer is drive-by-wire, it's too stupid to be able to do this, so I can't. So I have a little bit excessive ring gap, but that never hurt anybody. So you're going to do this. Pick your 2-bar. 1 bar is 1 barometric unit, basically atmospheric pressure. 2-bar is double that, essentially 200 kilopascals or 15 pounds of boost. You can run 3-bar if it gives you that option, which could give you upwards of 30 pounds of boost, basically 300 kilopascals of atmospheric pressure. I can only run 2-bar, so I'm clicking on this to apply it. It gives you a big warning, says, oh my gosh, save this, save it with a new name, save a couple, put some extras in there, and do an entire write process, not just the tune, because we are changing the operating system, and follow that. They've got bold, caps, italics, dancing girls, the whole thing to draw your attention to this. So do that, which I'm going to do, and I'm going to be right back. Okay, so I changed the operating system. I go here. There's nothing available for me to pick anymore because it's been picked. This is my first start tune. There's a couple little changes that have gone on, but this is where I'm at now. We're going to go to engine diagnostics and airflow, and we are going to fail the mass airflow sensor. We change this to 0 hertz. So anything other than no airflow is going to make the computer go, wow, there's something wrong with the mass airflow sensor. Ignore that. Put a check engine light up on the dash, and we're going to rely on some other math. In our case, that becomes speed density. So I don't want the check engine light, so I'm going to go over here to diagnostic trouble codes, find your mass airflow, volume airflow P0101, 102, and 103, and uncheck them so you get no errors at all. That's what I want to see. So that's it for that one. Then we're going to go to the engine, and we are going to change a couple things here. We're going to go to airflow and dynamic, and we're going to change mass airflow, the MAF air mass filter, I think, filter coefficient, 0 that, high RPM disable, 0 that, high RPM hysteresis, 0 that, and this should help you with a restart. Often when you reflash the computer and you go to restart it, it is freshly trying to fail the mass airflow sensor again, and that gets annoying. But if you 0 this, it apparently gets rid of it. Give it a go, see if that works. Then we can go to fuel. The first thing we're going to do with fuel is change the flow rate. And I've already gone in here and changed the flow rate to what I think my injectors are flowing. I also have a referenced fuel pressure regulator, so this is 72s right across the board. If you have a non-referenced fuel pressure regulator, this will be increasing rate. There's ways to figure that out, but this is what I did. That's not the point of this video. Then once you've got the flow rate figured out, then we can go and look at the volumetric efficiency table, which will be in airflow. And we want general. We're going to pick the primary VE table. And this is the VE table that came out of the original computer. And there's some weird things in here, especially this weird band, but I guess it's just weird. So notice also we're now at 210 kilopascals in here. We weren't previously, but this is up to 210. But this is not necessarily fueled for your turbo motor, but that's okay. This is just what it was. This is what the original was. So that's our VE table. It is a good idea to check that when you change the operating system, it didn't mess with this. Some people copy it, change the operating system, paste it, but you can double check it by going to compare. I like this feature, especially when you're trying to figure out what you just did. Where am I going here? But original, and this is what I have in this 2-bar operating system. If I click here, it's exactly the same numbers, and this is my original tune, the compare file, and this is 105 kilopascals. So these numbers are correct for no boost, and now they're in here. I know my numbers were kind of whacked, but I don't know whether they changed or not, so this is what I have for you guys today. Okay, we can close that or keep it, doesn't matter. So that's my VE table. We will change these numbers as we drive around and try things out, but they'll probably get you in the ballpark for now. Another thing you need to do is change these settings here in the airflow for whatever map sensor you bought. You can't use the stock 1-bar map sensor in here. You need something else. Because I was expecting to run 3-bar, I bought a 3-bar truck intake style map sensor, which is useless, but that's okay. HP tuners can see, oh, you've got a 3-bar map sensor, and we're just going to run off the bottom 2/3 of it. It's okay. It's going to work out just fine. So this is my sensor. And wherever you buy your sensor from, they should give you the values that you need to plug into here. So don't forget that part. The next thing we want to look at is our spark table, which is going to be a problem for us. You got a high octane and a low octane. Once I get the high octane dialed in, I'll copy it into here and just knock 5 degrees out so the computer has somewhere to go if it's seeing knock. So we'll look at this. And this is the same spark table that was on the 1-bar map. And it'll still work with that. You'll need to change some numbers, but there's problems here. And the problem is, notice this is no longer in kilopascals. This isn't looking at atmospheric pressure. This is looking at the amount of air, the volume of air that's going through your engine. And excitingly, it's calculated. And double excitingly, it's calculated based on the amount of fuel that you put into your engine. So if you're running it pig rich to handle boost, it's going to think you're way up here, and you will max out this table close to 7 pounds of boost. So if you want to run just 7 pounds, you can skip to the next part of this video and you don't have to deal with this. But boost is addictive, and it starts to be kind of fun. And with a boost T or a boost regulator or a controller, it's pretty easy to get greedy with this. And I'll be honest with you, it's surprising how quick 5 pounds of boost is no longer fun. So if you don't want to max out at 7 pounds, we need to make a change with this. And so the change we're going to do is this. All right, I've just loaded my most recent tune. This is my 86th or 87th tune, playing with it so far. So there might be some subtle changes here and there. And as a backup, or not a backup, a compare file, I open the one we just looked at just now. And so I can see where the changes are. And you'll see green where I've made changes. Let's go through them all. I'll talk a bit about them, but I'm going to hit on the key ones for us. But we're going to go across here. Let's go to fuel. Why not? So fuel. Previously, I had 72-pound injectors in here. But we're going to change things. We're going to mess with the computer's head to get a better spark table. And because the spark table is based entirely on fuel, this is what you can do. It's called scaling the tune. So what you do is whatever your injector flow is here, you can go a percentage less. So if you wanted just a little bit more boost, you can go like 70% or something. But to make the math easy for me, because I hate math, I took the 72 and divided it in half, or roughly half. This is what I have. 36.5 is what I'm telling the computer I have for injectors. So I'm telling the computer I have half the injector flow. Okay, the computer's not going to like that with our VE table. So let's click over here to airflow. If I go to my VE table, I have changed all of this in half. Now the numbers are going to be vastly different, but if I click on this guy, this is my original out of the ECU from the factory tune. These are all in the 60s and whatever not. And I went over here and it was roughly half. Now in 35. Previously it was like 65. So I just took the entire table and I divided all by 2. So you can go up to here, put in like 0.5, hit times, and it will cut the whole thing in half just for giggles. I'm not going to because I've done that. So take your entire VE table and divide it by 2. That works easy. So what you've in essence done is you've told the computer you have half the injector, and this table is telling the computer that you actually need half the fuel. Okay, so then this should jive with the smaller injector flow. However, the injector isn't that small. So when the injector actually opens, it's going to spray double the amount of fuel that it thinks it is. And it's saying it needs this much fuel, but the engine needs double the fuel that it thinks it needs. But the injector is double the size, so it's going to do it. So it's really screwing with the numbers so we can get a spark table in a happy place. All right, so with that gone on, and we've changed the airflow that it thinks it has, we have to make a whole bunch more changes now. So we're going to go into the mass airflow calibration, take that whole table, divide it by 2. You're going to divide everything in here or cut it in half. The EGR airflow, cut it in half. This is before, we're like 4, 2, 7, 12, 8. This is now 2, 1, 3, 7, 6, 4. So I took, this is before, I cut it in half. The mass airflow calibration, where's the beginning of this one? This is what it was. Look at those numbers. This is what it is, cut in half. Because we're telling the computer that we need less airflow. So we have to tell it we need less airflow in a lot of different places. I may or may not have changed this. I did change this, okay? So this is the airflow you're cranking, VE, volumetric efficiency for cranking. That's been cut in half and probably tweaked some, but definitely cut in half. This is different. This was just dealing with a hot restart issue. If you're having that, change these to 1.000. It just doesn't rely so much on the intake air temperature and more the engine coolant temperature. That's neither here nor there. That's just a little detail. So hot restart issues, that's what you're changing. Moving on. Nothing's in dynamic, electronic throttle, nothing happening there. Nothing's happening in exhaust. Let's look at fuel. I changed that. I changed the first pulse mass. This is what it was. We're looking at like 0.4, 0.2, 0.1. This is what it is now. 0.0, 0.2, 0.1, 0.09. It's cut in half. And that's just the first amount of fuel that is puked in when we're trying to crank this thing. Again, we need half of it. The others I did not change. Some people change everything. I found some I did not need to bother with. Oxygen sensors. We're going to turn off the long-term fuel trim because if over the long haul your engine is kind of running on the lean side, it will carry that lean through boost, and we don't want that. So I changed this to maximum. It gives you your maximums here. So when my engine's at 284 degrees Fahrenheit, it will now do long-term fuel trim. If you're at 284 degrees Fahrenheit, the last thing you're worried about is long-term fuel trim. So this is essentially disabled. I also disabled long-term fuel trim here by going 0%. Open loop base, nothing changed there. Power enrichment, there's going to be a lot of things you'll do differently here. The LS computer for trucks in particular is pretty useless when it comes to power enrichment. So some changes you want to make. Put your minimum map to 90 kilopascals, your minimum torque to 0. This is what it was. It was 100% and 55 kilopascals. Change your minimum torque to be, I don't care. The instant I'm getting into 90 kilopascals, I want some extra fuel. The delay, it takes a long time for it to delay. So what it used to delay, it would delay if you're below 5,500 RPM, which I don't want. I don't want a delay. And it's like a minute before you get that stuff happening. And so change that to be like 2,000 RPM and 0 delay. We don't want that. Enrichment ramp in for power enrichment used to be pretty wee. Make it friggin' huge and make it a 1. And then this is your power enrichment. You want to change to these values all the way across. This is like 12.6, I think, all the way across. So it's going to go rich right quick. Some people add this even richer. I'm going to play with that a little different later on. And then throttle, hot and cold. I don't remember what I did here. Oh, it looks like it's less. TPS threshold. So yeah, I want it to definitely give me a little bit more throttle. I don't want to be at 90. I want to be like low. I want it to tip in and give me fuel right away. Boost enrichment is a nice feature for the 2-bar and 3-bar operating systems. I have it set so that I'm still doing power enrichment at 90 kilopascals, but at 100 kilopascals, I want to start ramping in some extra enrichment here. Some say this runs slower than power enrichment. I don't notice a difference. So here's at 100 kilopascals, this will be about 12.6, and then it just gets fatter and fatter and fatter until we're at about 7.5 pounds boost, and I've got it carrying all the way through. I don't remember what that is in a math. It's going to be somewhere pretty pig rich, like 10.5, 10.8, maybe 11. You can do math. This is what I've put in. I didn't play with anything in here. Didn't play with anything in here. Played a little bit with this. I don't remember why. Used to be 028. Changed it to 014. Okay, so that's half. Flex fuel, I'm not doing anything with. Then, for spark, things go a little bit different. Because now everything's different. We're running half of all of the airflow. So we're actually halfway up the table when we would have been at the top. Does that even make sense? So you're going to take everything from your different rows and put them down below. Like 016. So take everything from the 016, copy that entire row, put it in the 08. Take everything from the 024, copy that entire row, put it into the 12 row. Everything you had in the, I lost track of where I was. The 40, copy that row, put it into the 20, and you'll be extrapolating a bit as you go. So ultimately, it's going to look kind of like this. So all of these fatter spark timing things all the way up into here, where we're at 4,000, 4,400, we got like 18 degrees at 0.76 air mass. It's going to be all of this is going to be kind of copied and smudged down so that all of this can be boost. So I go here, and all of those, it's heavily packed here. So this is roughly full throttle. We're at 4,400, 22 degrees in this ballpark for timing. I'm not ever going to drive this engine at 8,000 RPM, so I'm using this row, this column as markers for where I am at for boost. So I have an idea what I'm doing here, because I don't really speak grams of air mass very well, but I know boost. I'm not likely going to be 400 RPM and 12 pounds of boost. So I've just put some little key markers here to help me find where I'm at on the table in here. So you can use those. They're not going to mess anything up. And I've been tuning, upwards of here. I got up to about 9 pounds currently. And all of this is tuning along fairly well. So it's changed a bit from what the original was, which was here, but I've altered parts of it. It's not vastly different. I've just taken all of this fat, and it's now in a much smaller part of the table. And then you extrapolate and figure out what kind of timing do you want up here. And there's stuff I haven't changed, and stuff I have. So like this one, this is like -8 at 60, so it'll probably show up in here at a -8. Except I deleted it. So yeah, I just kind of moved things down. So that is my spark table. You're copying things and moving it down. And then extrapolate. Low octane is the whole thing copied at -5 degrees. And then we have some corrections you need to do. And these are based on flow. I'm not running flex fuel, so I haven't played with these. Base, that's been zeroed. Because this adds, this is the factory tune right now. The original tune adds spark based on your richness. And you could use this to pull spark based on your richness if you wanted. Instead, I don't want it to add timing when I'm under fat fuel for boost, so I zeroed the table. Incidentally, that's going to cause a drivability problem when you start it up first thing in the morning. So here, what was the original? The original was this. Again, I copied things down. So the 032 went into, well, the 40 went into the 20. So that row ends up going into here. But I also added some spark in places, I think. because it was a drivability issue. When it's cold in the morning, like this is supposed to add timing when the engine is cold, but when the engine's cold, it's going to be rich. So this table would add the timing when it's cold and rich, but I took that out. So when it was cold, it didn't have enough timing. So I'm pretty sure it was the engine coolant temperature I added. This one, intake air temperature, same thing. All of this whole section gets pushed down into this area, and you can extrapolate. That's what it was. That's what it is. That's what it was. That's what it is. I'm just moving stuff down because I'm driving here and I'm boost up there. Whereas here, I'm driving all over here and no boost. Okay. Catalyst heating, I think that's zeroed, so it doesn't screw with timing to make my catalytic converters light up. This was just, what did I do with this? Oh, this is another one. It's based on air mass. This is what it was. Again, copy your rows down. So this is where going by 50 is nice, because the 80 row goes into the 40 row, and it ends up looking like this. Okay, everything gets copied down. That works slick. In drive and in park, same thing. This is what it was. Everything gets moved down. This is what it is. And just use your numbers. You don't have to copy these. Max torque timing. They say we do not recommend modifying this table, but I did, because if I'm looking at this kind of air mass, what should my spark timing be? And I kind of went what the rule of thumb has been for LS engines and made it work. In theory, you don't have to touch that. It probably isn't an issue. But those are the things I messed with for there to make this run. And it fired up and ran. Do I do anything here? Oh, in the retard section, burst knock is the computer anticipates that there's going to be knock and pulls timing. If you just change it all to 8s, it shuts up and lets things be. And you can take this guy and zero that table as well. And burst knock doesn't do anything anymore. That might be an issue. It might not be. Dwell, I did not change. Knock sensors, I did, because I found it a little sensitive. So I changed this from what it was. I just went 11s and 8s and changed it to 14 and 10 for quite a ways. And that just made it a little less sensitive. Tip in RPM, same kind of thing. This is what it was. It was 13s all the way across, and I went to 17s all the way across. It's just a number to make it less sensitive. And then this one, it's all over the place. And I just messed with the far ends, I think, and kept the middle about the same. Looks like I just messed with this end. Why? I don't remember, but that's what I did. All right, bonus features. You're going to find stuff in torque management that's going to kick your bum. Max torque, just max it right out. Make it massive. If what it does is the computer is going to expect to have a certain amount of torque, but if you're under a boost, you're going to have way more torque than that. And to save you, the computer starts pulling timing and pulling throttle to save your butt. And all that money you spent building your vehicle, and you're going to go, wow, this thing is a dog. So maximize your maximum torque. This is your traction control system. Zero that. Okay? I don't want any spark retard based on RPM. Get rid of it all. I prevented, I allow it to downshift. I'll disable holding the gear, and then I made all of these 0. And so this just kind of pretty much disables your traction control system, which you'll be happier with, which means you might be able to spin the wheels. This one's a fun one. I've played with part of this. This is what it was. This table is telling you how much throttle you'll get. It's a drive-by-wire, which is interesting. So you might go full throttle. Well, maybe not full throttle, but let's say you give it some pretty aggressive throttle, like 80% of the gas pedal's down at 2400 RPM. It's only going to open the throttle 10%. Well, who wants that? This isn't the way I drive. I drive up here. So I just changed the table to this. A lot of people change it to 100% everywhere. I'm sneaking up to that. I want to see how far I can get before it's undrivable. This is really good. Like, it just hooks up and goes, and there's very little wheel spin, which is kind of what you want, but I'm quite happy with this. I may creep up more and more and more, but this is what I'm running so far. It just gives me more throttle when I give it more throttle, what I actually want. Let's go back to the engine and abuse. So abuse, some say this prevents you from doing brake stands. Some say this prevents you from doing a neutral drop. You can disable this, or don't worry about it till we're over 8,000 RPM and under 5 miles an hour, and then you can be a little more abusive. One other place to look is up in engine diagnostics, airflow, and this one, calculated air mass. So this kind of prevents your LS from doing a Toyota Corolla incident. What it's doing is it's calculating how much air mass should be going through the throttle, and if it exceeds that, it shuts the throttle down. It kind of just goes, there's usually a backfire, and then it stops working. It'll idle, but you got to shut it off and restart it to get it resetting itself, because it's like a blackjack gambler who notices that you're cheating and just shuts off and walks away from the table. So this is what it was. Okay, this is the air mass it thinks you're going to get. You're never going to get more than 0.82 at 4,500 RPM. That's like the highest it's going to be. But if you're running boost, it's going to see more than 0.82, absolutely, and it's going to poop its pants right there. So I just scaled it all up until the highest, that 0.82, is more like the top of the airflow scale. It's like 1.31, and I just scaled the whole thing right up. This is what it was. I scaled it up until I got to here, and it's never caused me a problem since. I don't think you want to go higher than that. That's kind of a fail-safe in case things get out of hand. You still have some throttle control. So that one took me a while to find. So that's a good one to do on the drive-by-wire. Last one we should look at is in your transmission. And there's some things you want to do here. Let's look at what I did. Shift scheduling. Part throttle shift. I think I changed something. Yeah, this doesn't really matter. Full throttle shift speed doesn't really matter. Shift RPM doesn't really matter. What you want to play with is the torque converter. And this can improve the life of your torque converter by changing the duty cycle so it can just be on. So that's kind of nice. That's pulse width modulation. So I upped that quite a bit. This is what it used to be. Oh, that's not a big gain. And the minimum, this is what it used to be. That's pretty minimum. So we ramped that one up as well. Hopefully make the torque converter last. And I recommend getting in here and messing with this. So I want this to be this is when I apply or release the torque converter. When I'm applying, going into second gear, or if I'm anywhere over 75% throttle, I don't want the torque converter clutch locked at all until I'm doing well over prison speeds. So this is all changed. So this is what it looked like before. These are the speeds it's applying the clutch at these throttle positions. I don't want that. I want to make sure when I get my 75% throttle, I want that clutch to disengage so I don't smoke that clutch. And I did that in here, in normal, in cruise was done as well. A hot transmission done as well, and performance mode, which I don't have the option of getting because I don't have a button for it, but what the heck, it's in there. So all of those have been turned on so that I can turn off the torque converter clutch so I don't smoke it when I'm under boost. We talked about those. I think that's all I messed with in here. So in a nutshell, we looked at things changing the operating system. We looked at some engine settings, some diagnostic settings to disable the mass airflow sensor and get our throttle working properly. We got into the transmission, turned off some torque converter features. We looked at playing with mainly the fuel flow rates for your injectors, the primary VE airflow table for your engine. We looked at scaling the whole thing down so we can have a spark table that actually works for normal people. And we also looked at all the other things that I had to scale down to match so it would run right. And the thing runs and drives spot on. It works really well with just these changes. Everything in here in green that you saw is the stuff I've messed with. The idle spark in advance is just a drivability thing I've ramped up, but it doesn't really affect you here. But I find I quite enjoy playing with things, and I'm a bit of a control freak, so being able to mess with the computer and make it do the things I want is wonderful. So I'm just sharing that with you. By all means, check other websites and YouTube channels and videos and stuff and see what other people have done, because somewhere in there is going to be a philosophy or a theory that works for you, and then go out and share that to other people as well. Don't just base your world on one opinion. Get a bunch of opinions and then make the decision that works the best for you. This is what's working for me. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you again.